Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today, I have with me Sanjeev Pulapaka, who's currently the principal AI architect at AWS, Amazon Web Services. Now, Sanjeev has started off his career working in product management, becoming a senior systems analyst, a little bit of consulting, and of course, he took on some business roles and eventually got into more technical focused roles, such as becoming the principal AI architect. Now, Sanjeev, can I hear from your perspective? Tell me a little bit more about your background and how led you to what you're doing today.
I mean, that's right. I've started off more like in the management side. Not, I wouldn't say management, but basically started off with doing my MBA in Notre Dame, University of Notre Dame, and I did it in like dual degree, almost like information systems and general management. So the first role I landed out of the MBA was in a data warehousing unit at
Mhm.
Discover Card. So that was, I think, where I started getting a lot more technical. I mean, that naturally fit into both the business and technology aspects
Mhm.
because, again, it's all about decisions, collecting data, making decisions, creating reports, metrics, and all that. So it was a very business oriented role, but along with requiring deep technical expertise. So that was how I think I've been uh, throughout my careers, like straddling both the
Mhm.
business side and the technical side, which I really like because that allows me to do experience in the whole cycle,
Excellent.
right? Starting from the business standpoint and then implementation. So yeah, and I've been in the data space throughout my career.
Mhm.
So it was, and it was a natural shift to AI when I think about 8 or 9 years ago when AI started becoming more mainstream. So I started picking up on that as part of the analytics
Mhm.
packages. And then I established the practice at one of the companies I worked at REI Systems. And then after that, I moved to AWS where I continued to focus on AI. So yeah,
Certainly.
and now of course AI has become has become exploded, and there's a lot that is happening in the AI space.
Agreed. Now, I'm very curious about the beginning part. Did you choose to want to pursue business roles? Was that an intention in mind, or what was the, I guess, reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I think it was always I like to work with customers and what is the problem that we're trying to solve,
Mhm.
and that's I'm more like a problem oriented person. So I always look for what is the problem we're trying to solve and how can we solve that using technology. That's sweet space I like to be
Mhm.
in. So that's why it's like I feel like technology without that business vision is incomplete for me. So I
Mhm.
don't feel like it's just
Mhm.
satisfied just looking at the technology. So it has to be connected to a business purpose.
Mhm.
So that's why I've always been looking at it from that standpoint.
Excellent. So, Sanjeev, when I've met a lot of principal engineers and other technical individuals, distinguished engineers, in fact, as well, a lot of them had a period in their career where they really understood, although they've been technical, they had to understand the business side of things in order to maximize the impact with their skill set. So, my question to you is, when did you realize that? And has this always been something potentially you want to do, or did you realize that a little bit early on?
Yeah, it's always been that. I mean, I think I realized very early on that it doesn't. I mean, to me, it's without the problem you're trying to solve. There's this, technology is only going to get you so far. So
Mhm.
just the same even now, right? What's if we have a great technology in AI, but if you're not trying to solve some specific problems with
Real
it,
business
then
problems.
yeah, so we have it's and it could be like it could be some kind of problem. It doesn't necessarily be a business problem, but it could be a mission problem for like on the
Mhm.
federal side or at the government side, or it could be some other kind of problem. So, but essentially, that's what you're trying to do is solve problems with technology. So I think that makes sense to go at it from that perspective, and
Mhm.
always trying to keep in mind is your implementation meeting the business objective or the objective of the program or the mission, right? So,
Correct. So when did you get more into the AI space?
yeah, I think it was as part of I was in a company called ICMARC. I was
Mhm.
leading the implementation of analytics, specifically customer 360-degree analytics using a SaaS product. And I think as part of that, there were some requirements there where for predictive analytics
Mhm.
that really helped the sales folks in terms of projecting certain customer characteristics, what they would like, what they wouldn't like, things like that. So I think that's where I started getting into it. And
Mhm.
so at that point, it was much more traditional machine learning. So all the decision tree kind of analysis that was used at that point. So I did get into, understanding those algorithms and implementing
Mhm.
them using SAS really.
Mhm.
But that's where I was started, getting a lot more grounding in that technology. So, from that point, then I expanded into other types of AI, ML, and
Mhm.
it was all machine learning at that point. And then expand, and as I moved to another organization, I focused on that as one of the core competencies to develop within the organization because, again, it was starting to pick up. There were a lot of things going on. Neural networks, I think, had just been getting a
Mhm.
mainstream at that point. And then after that, the NLP space was getting big. So we use that in a lot of different solutions for the federal government, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, research agencies were looking at summarization of abstracts. So those are the kind of things that were like grants management, trying to look at review grants and see, which proposals made sense or not. So there's a lot of different things, aspects of it that we were able to use machine learning more
Mhm.
effectively.
Well, Sanjeev, you've been leading in the AI space for over 6 years now, and I'm sure you're aware of this particular phenomenon in which there are companies, potentially smaller or medium-sized companies, or even larger ones, that potentially are trying to and attempting to ride the wave of AI as opposed to maximize the impact of actually making the maximum impact to their organization. How do you distinguish between those two routes, between maximizing impact and one in which they're essentially trying to ride the wave? How do you distinguish those two, and how do you maximize the impact of AI?
Yeah, so good question. I mean, before I address that list correction, I've been in the AI space for now close to, I would say, 10 years. So,
10 years.
yeah, so it's been a while. Yeah, I would say, I mean, it really doesn't matter what you're doing. It's going to be a part, it will be a part of what you're doing as stable stakes pretty much right now because there are certain things where AI has become so um, necessary. I would,
Mhm.
one example is coding tools.
Mhm.
Um, I think I would say 70 to 80% of organizations are rapidly adopting coding tools.
Mhm.
And if you don't, then you're going to be falling behind. And it is a
Right.
truth, it's pretty much it's a known fact now that it's really able to accelerate your coding development, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so almost every organization has to ride that wave, right?
Mhm.
So that's what's going to happen is that in certain spaces you will see that AI is become going to become almost mandatory,
Mhm.
um, and almost every company will be using it extensively. Now, there's other spaces in AI, for example, agentic AI, where you're applying it for business transformation,
Mhm.
and that could take, it really depends. I think jury is still out there. There is a lot
Mhm.
of promise to it, but there is also a lot of risk involved in agentic AI. It's
Mhm.
not simple. It is a lot of
Cybersecurity.
work. Well, there's that's a good point, the security
Mhm.
aspect, but even implementation, it's right now AI is, at the end of the day, it is probabilistic. It's not deterministic yet.
Mhm.
So there
Mhm.
is a chance of error. So there's a lot of work has to be done to get these outcomes that folks are looking for.
Mhm.
So that has to be kept in mind. So will everything be transformed? Maybe not. It really depends on
Mhm.
the use case, situation, etc. So it might not be worth the effort. At the end of the day, it might be like you're spending so much time trying to forcibly convert something in an agentic AI, that it might not be worth your while. If you, it's
Right.
probably better you went deterministic. But there are some certain situations where it makes sense. So, uh,
Hmm.
so it'll be
Right.
interesting to see the extent to which AI will influence business processes. I know that most companies are looking. I mean, they're opening up agentic AI
Hmm.
organizations with, and they're trying to look at this holistically and
Right.
examining how it can be done. Yeah.
Well, talking about AI transformation specifically, if you look at the numbers on even a digital transformation itself, it looks like only about 30 to 33% are successful, if I'm correct on that. I believe that's the correct statistic. But when it comes to AI transformation specifically, I think that's going to be a little bit more different because, as you know, one of the biggest problems with digital transformations is not engaging the key stakeholders to make that transformation successful. So, when you have AI transformations in which there are potential individuals in that organization that are not as, let's just say, willing to adopt to AI, what do you think has to happen for a successful AI transformation in the next couple of years in an organization, given this circumstance with digital transformation themselves?
Yeah, it really depends on the. I mean, there's not a one cut and
Mhm.
dry answer like anything else. It really depends on the industry. That it
Mhm.
depends on the what's going on in that particular vertical. There are certain regulatory industries where it'll be more challenging. Risk averse organizations, like the
Mhm.
financial organizations, like the
Healthcare.
healthcare organizations, the government organizations, where people will be like more risk averse, and they may
Mhm.
not want to experiment to that extent. And there
Mhm.
are some where the priorities are different, right? So that may not really happen
Mhm.
as quickly. But again, they might pick and choose. Some of them might have
Mhm.
benefits in certain use cases where you know like, again, like the coding example, they might actually do that even within those organizations, right?
Mhm.
So the level of adoption will depend on a number of different factors, just like it
Mhm.
has been for any other technology.
Mhm.
But the risk is definitely there, and there are some caveats that everybody needs to be cognizant of. You talked about one already. Security is a big one,
Mhm.
and again, being careful, because we know that there are mistakes that can happen. So how do you put in the guardrails? How do you put in all um, the necessary governance practices,
Mhm.
the responsible AI practices, to make sure that you're careful in your rollout, and
Mhm.
you make sure that you meet everybody's needs. Yeah.
So we talk a lot, or individuals talk a lot about the productivity aspect of agentic AI in terms of automating, in terms of being able to reduce expenses on employees, etc. Now, what's not been talked about enough are really the limitations. We already discussed some of them today. Hallucinations. There are cybersecurity risks when you do something at scale because of the attack surface levels. Now, from your perspective, what are some other limitations that potentially other people are not considering when thinking about just purely the benefits of agentic AI?
I mean, it's the rate of evolution, the
Mhm.
rate at which this is changing. It's hard to keep up. Now, one tool that comes in, or let's just take models. One model is there today, tomorrow there's another model. Organizations have to keep evolving, changing that.
Mhm.
That there is a risk there that things fall off the tracks. The
Mhm.
pace is so fast that
Mhm.
you might increase the chances of errors. So,
Mhm.
you might see that, in fact, right now, where if you're using agentic AI tools, coding tools, yeah, sure, it's really fast, but it can make a bunch of
Mhm.
mistakes, and you need to have the proper frameworks in place
Checkpoints.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
checkpoints, stories, methodologies. In AWS, we have developed some methodologies that help mitigate some of that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, those are the kind of things that you have to watch out for. So although it is really promising, you, on the other hand, you need to be equally very vigilant and careful
Mhm. Mhm.
when you implement it, and make sure it's not something that will damage your reputation, or
Yep.
yeah, things like that.
And
Yeah.
What was very interesting is I spoke to the principal AI engineer yesterday at McKinsey. His name is Partha Deka. He said that one of the limitations right now is not just AI itself, but it's the amount of subject experts to review and validate the workflows that Agentic AI is doing that is actually limiting the amount that can be done. So what do you think about that perspective?
Uh, Folks are mitigating that by using other agents. So,
Mhm,
so there's an agent to review another agent work. So there is that is true. I agree with that to a certain extent. Yes.
mhm,
But you know, in terms of how this work is done, it's not that
mhm,
everybody, everything is not being reviewed. You
mhm,
just possibly can't do that.
mhm.
You have to pick and choose what's going to be reviewed. So
Right.
there's like it's a code sampling, right? It's a sampling. So it's not necessary that you can, if you have somebody reviewing everything that agentic AI is doing, then there's no real point of the agentic AI. So,
Sure.
so the point of this is that you have to develop a framework and the necessary guardrails and the whole
Mhm,
system in such a way that you minimize the risk.
mhm,
That is the challenge. It's not easy to do. You will come across a lot of failures. You will see
mhm,
security risks creep up. You will see obstacles. Will they be able to, like, just say something really bad happens, will your organization continue to take the risk, right? And that is going to be what is going to be very interesting to watch and see how it develops. Yeah.
Excellent. And a concluding question for our conversation on AI would be really deploying it at scale. As we discussed before, this can open up the vulnerabilities of attack surfaces because of the sheer volume itself of
Yeah.
agentic AI. So what do you think what has to happen structurally to minimize the impact on cybersecurity risk?
So I hope the focus, I mean, should be equally on how do you protect this systems,
Yes.
not just develop. So MCP is a classic example. It came up very rapidly, but there was not the how do you protect something against this? That came later.
Hmm.
So all the security protocols that you're seeing around MCP was developed much later than when MCP initially came out, and almost there was a scramble for everyone to develop it. So that is the part which is going to be the hard part, is to keep up with the rate of pace of change. That's the
Hmm.
same thing. Like, something new comes, how are you going to make sure that it's, and it happened even with Mythos, right? And Anthropic, I thought was very, kudos to them for calling out, hey, this
Hmm.
is too dangerous, too risky, we need to keep it closed. So they're going about it very well that way. So yeah, I mean, again, it will challenge every organization, every frontier model company, because they have to
Hmm.
make that decision. It's going to be difficult because they'll be dealing with stakeholder pressures to
Hmm.
maximize profit. So that is going to be interesting to see. We have two companies, Anthropic and OpenAI, right now, but there'll be potentially, I don't know how many others who will come up with maybe newer architectures,
Hmm.
and it's going to be the same thing again, that we have to take that, balance that out and make sure that you mitigate the risks associated with some of these new technologies.
Excellent. Well, Sajid, thank you for those perspectives. What we'll do now is go ahead and shift this conversation to a little bit more about you on the personal side. So the first question I have for you is, what is something about you or your life that you wish more people knew about?
But I think it would be good to know that uh, the journey for someone from from a chemical engineering background to a business MBA to a AI technology person is something that is possible, and so if you really want to, you can certainly keep evolving, changing, and improving yourself. So I think I was able to navigate that. It's also good to know that I was in management at some point, and I decided to become
Mhm,
an individual contributor, there's no problem with that. So it really, you can
mhm,
pick and choose. I think it's good to for folks to really be true to yourself, pick what you really want. And yeah, I think that's something I definitely like to share.
mhm. Well, the mindset behind going from chemical engineering to business and to, of course, AI, I'm curious about how you potentially went through potentially people doubting you if that ever happened, or if there are people thinking that something untoward about the things you're doing?
Though I don't think it was that case. I think it's challenging to shift from someone who's like
Hmm.
an MBA to get into a data warehousing position is
Right.
challenging. But yes,
Right.
that's something that I was able to demonstrate and do. And similarly, shifting from management to technology is not very easy too.
Hmm.
So I was
Right.
like leading teams, and I was mostly in management, but I did have the technology background. So I kept
Hmm.
myself busy with the technology, and I was always, engaging with like the teams to make sure that I understood the technology. So I always kept in touch with that. So I was able to convince the other company for, when I made the
Hmm.
shift to an IC role. So that was
Hmm.
good. So yeah, I think um, it was always about trying to figure out how to transform yourself and do
Sure.
it using some of the tools that you have. But it's certainly something that anybody who wants you can do that,
Hmm.
and should be able to do. Yeah, yeah.
And if you were to look back at yourself in your 20s and you now, what do you think is the biggest difference between you and your 20s and now?
I think 20s, I was not really sure. I mean, I did have the
Hmm.
ambition to become like more of a management person, lead my teams, climb up the chain, that from that perspective. In
Hmm.
hindsight, I feel I should have always been in more into technology rather than
Hmm.
going towards management. I think that would have been better. Now that I
Hmm.
look at it, so but at that time I was like, I want to do an MBA. I want to be in the business side
Okay.
completely. Um, but later on, I found, hey, it's like you need to be in both, right? And I think being on the starting with the technology would have been better, I think, for me, and then moving to
Hmm.
business, and then the other way around. Yeah.
Hmm. So, person-wise, how are you different? How are you specifically different? How's Sanjeev different from Sanjeev when he's in his 20s?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more cognizant and
Mm-hmm.
aware of the realities that face this world. I mean, at 20, you're much more, I would say, naive from that sense that you're not fully aware of the kinds of things that happen in everywhere in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's just I'm much more calmer, much more understanding, much more aware of the different perspectives that people
Mm-hmm.
bring, and being able to just, look at life as it is, which
Mm-hmm.
is, one continuous moving object, which is, dynamic, rather than something static and which you can define. So, those are some of the changes that I've had
Excellent.
in my viewpoint. Yeah.
Excellent. So what we'll do now is go ahead and share a very concise perspective regarding health and fitness, and we'll go ahead and conclude the podcast with Sanjeev's plans for this year. The main perspective I really want to provide today is one that's going to be more time efficient or leaning towards a time efficient strategy itself. As you know, Sanjeev, a lot of my viewers are entrepreneurs and executives, so I want to make this as relevant as possible. Now, the biggest problem that you can see is the adherence factor. How often can you actually adhere to the strategy itself? And the problem that I see with the adherence is people following a location dependent plan, something where you have to go to a specific location to, like a gym or to a studio, and prioritize that as a main mechanism for the transformation. But the days that you're traveling, the days that you're potentially in the office the whole day or taking calls, you won't be able to adhere to that process. And in a long enough time frame, you're going to end up quitting or not actually getting that goal itself. So how can you actually restructure to be a lot more efficient at one that's optimized for adherence? Focus on a location independent plan as opposed to a location dependent plan. Something you can do anytime and anywhere as opposed to one fixed location. Because once you have that, you have something that can actually adapt to what your schedule is. So I would specifically recommend leveraging something like step count, because step count is something you can do while you listen to this podcast, something while you can do what you can do when you're traveling or potentially when you're taking a call. Anywhere there's ground underneath you, which I'm assuming is 99.9% of the time in the world, you can be leveraging this specific approach. There's a specific amount you have to do, but the idea is now it's shifting to your schedule as opposed to you making time in your schedule for it. And that's the idea behind that. And hopefully that gives a different perspective. This is actually what I use myself to lose over 70 pounds and actually keep it off. So hopefully it gives a different perspective to what traditionally being told and one that's actually doable. So what we'll do now is go ahead and shift the conversation to Sanjeev's plans for this year.
Great. Yeah.
Yes. So Sanjeev, tell me a little bit about your plans for this year.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think so. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going on this year. Certainly, I have, from a work perspective, uh, I do have a couple of sessions in Public Sector Summit at Washington, D.C. So I have one session on self-improving agents for how you use self-improving agents for discovery and scientific research. So that's something that I'm working on right now. I plan to do a lot more in terms of working with the scientific community as part of the Genesis program. So that's the program announced to help the advancement of AI within the U.S. technology sector. So, working with a number of different labs across the country to help them with their implementations, help them with their strategy and things like that. So this year I think will be focused a lot on that, as well
Mhm,
as some of these sessions that I talked about, and also I just recently released a blog on federal rulemaking, which
mhm,
is I think released yesterday. So
mhm.
I plan to release some more blogs, etc., this year along those lines. So those are the main
Excellent.
things on the professional side. Personal side, we have the World Cup coming, so I do have plans to go and see the match. I have seen one match, although the tickets are really expensive. I'm like, hey, I need to go for one match at least for the World
Mhm.
Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that right now in June. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, Sanjeev, where can people learn more about you and potentially your blog as well?
I would say go to LinkedIn, or you can just Google
Okay.
my name. You should be able to find my LinkedIn page. It lists out all the different blogs. Or if you just Google my name, you should be able to see all the blogs that I've written. I've also written a book on generative AI for the public
Hmm.
sector. So I think that's something that you can read it. And I really wrote that book keeping the general reader in mind, so that those folks who are not familiar with machine learning can pick it up and understand some of the concept behind generative AI. So you can do that.
Well, Sanjeev, it was a pleasure to have you on. This is Aryan Mahindra and Sanjeev